Hi, this is Fran Maier for the Napa Institute, and our guest on this podcast today is Tim Busch. Tim is a businessman, an attorney, and a Catholic philanthropist. He is the founder, with Father Bob Spitzer, of the Napa Institute back in 2011. And with his wife, Steph, he's been very active in support of lay organizations and developing a sense of principled entrepreneurship among Catholic and other Christian business leaders. So with that, we'll get right to the conversation. Thanks for making time to do this. It's a difficult economy and you have a lot of responsibilities, but it was, a difficult time 10 years ago too, when you began the Napa Institute. There were a lot of demands on your time. I'm just wondering what possessed you and Steph to actually found the Institute, and what your goals were in what were you trying to achieve by establishing the Institute?
Well, it was a Holy Spirit thing in the summer of 2009. I believe, excuse me, it's 2010, which was just in the wake of the downturn. I was sitting in Hawaii and my family was on the beach, and I was in just working because I can only take so much silent time. And it just kind of came to me. So I picked up a dictaphone and I dictated exactly what the conference would look like, the summer conference. I had no idea about anything else. And it was exactly what we have today. And so it was definitely the intervention of the Holy Spirit. And I said, look, it's August of 2010. We held our first conference in July of 2011. Mm-hmm. And I had this beautiful resort, the backdrop we have of the vineyards. And, I had Aspen Institute, Vail Institute. I said, wouldn't it be great to have a Catholic organization that would be called Napa Institute? And so that's what we did. Mark Brumley of Ignatius Press was kind of been needling me for a couple of years. Why don't you do a conference in Napa? And I said, oh, geez, Mark, I got so much other things going on. It's kind of like the Holy Spirit always hits you 2 or 3 times, so he's in charge, and that it's just not your crazy idea. So it's been wildly successful.
So now I'm familiar with the 3 pillars that you built this on. I mean, community, formation, and liturgy. But why those 3? Why not, liberty and a bunch of other things that you could come up with? Those 3 don't immediately spring to mind, but I'm sure they did with you. And why don't you explain what that means?
Well, I really love liturgy, and the thing about our Catholic Church is most of us have no idea of the depth of the liturgy in the worship programs that we have in our faith, and most of them, they feel like we're all undone in Vatican II, and it's further from the truth. And I've learned so much about the Orthodox liturgies, which have been amazing, and so I thought, I used to go to some Catholic conferences, and the liturgies were like rinky-dink. They were just not well executed. And I wanted to have something that was beautiful. And I believe that has been the backbone of success of the Napa Institute. Now, faith formation is all about catechesis. Even myself, I'm just shocked at how many things I didn't know. And I'm pretty well read, and I attend a lot of conferences and try to learn more about the faith. But boy, we just are living in nowhere land when it comes to the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. And then and of course, I'm all about meeting people and having fun. I think I've said this is the Benedict option, the pragmatic Benedict option, which is you have to get with people, because the reason 55% of Catholics in the pew believe with 55% of Americans that don't go to church is because they're tribal, and they hang around with people, and when things are happening, they're not going to stand up to people. So this is what I thought. Let's get some friends. That's what I learned from Legatus in 30 years. Is getting people who are aligned with you, so you don't trap yourself into these bad habits of divorce and adultery and all the other stuff that can happen.
Yeah, I think listening to what you're saying, I mean, I attended a number of the conferences, obviously, over the years, from the very beginning until most recently. And on the issue of community, uh, what's true, I think, about life is that you're weak when you're alone, and you get strength from being around people who hold similar convictions, and that network makes you strong. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't think you should ever underestimate the power of the beauty of your liturgies. I mean, it's not a question of good theater. Beauty attracts and converts people. And one of the strongest things about the Napa Institute, Tim, in my experience over the years, has been just the absolute beauty of and the joy that comes from that beauty of the liturgies. They're really quite extraordinary.
Thank you. And I'm very pleased with it. Obviously, I delegated that to other people, and we've had some great deacons who have stepped up. Deacon Frank O'Reilly in particular, and of course, a lot of John Pfeiffer did a lot of our design. He actually designed the whole structure once I gave it to him, but he also helped on the beauty of our setting up the cave for our masses and having that be so unique. And so we'll have to see what's going to happen under COVID-19. We're working on making it a different location just because we got to space people out potentially.
Wow. Yeah. Now, how do you think the church has changed, and how do you think the nation has changed in the last 10 years? I mean, when you got this started, one of the premises of what you were doing was preparing Catholics for the next America. Okay, we're in the next America, and in a sense, in the next generation of the church as well. What's different, and how are you adjusting to that in terms of the mission of the Institute?
Yeah, well, probably the most rapid change in culture has been the LGBTQ movement and same-sex marriage under Obergefell. I mean, if you think about Obama went in the first administration, and his platform was marriages between man and woman. And his second administration, anybody that doesn't believe in same-sex marriage is a bigot.
Mm-hmm.
Same president of the United States, same one. And just back-to-back administrations. So it was the most radical change in culture that we've ever seen. And it's just like Roe v. Wade, Obergefell made it legal. And so young kids, good Catholics, that aren't well-formed, they go, well, the government says it's okay, so it must be okay. We're bigots. This is like the African Americans, we didn't think African Americans should marry white people, and now we're the same thing when it comes to same sex, and it's so different. I mean, it's so different. And so we just can't fall on this slippery slope. Unfortunately, it's going to take a generation to change that particular ruling. I'm really optimistic about life. I think we're getting, we're going to start putting the noose on restrictions at the state level, and maybe even overthrow Roe v. Wade. But we're in the next America. I mean, if you don't believe in same-sex marriage, you can't be an officer of a public company.
Yeah,
you're a bigot, and they're pretty much a protected class. And as a result, it's like discriminating against an African American person. It's really dangerous. And but thank God we have a strong religious liberty in our lay apostolates, in particular Napa Institute.
Well, in terms of, I want to just tease out that point about that's the changes in the nation, and of course, people's perception of the church has changed because they're frankly less well formed. In terms of church leadership, how, in your experience, has that changed?
Well, we have the crisis of 2018, the summer of shame. Mm-hmm. It's deeper than one man falling. His Eminence Cardinal, former Cardinal McCarrick, now Mr. McCarrick. It was, everybody knew and nobody was doing anything about it. And so I think there needs to be a more active role of the laity in the governance of the church. I get the fact that we're not Protestants and that the church shouldn't be a democracy and all that stuff, but we need accountability. And the problem with the hierarchical church that we have, we're not going to change that because that's what Jesus Christ set up. But there's a fraternity among the priests, and it's like in the military, you don't cross that fraternity if you want to go anyplace. And so everybody's on an escalator up to the top. and they're just looking the other way. They're running stop signs every step of the way, both in the area of financial and in the area of protection of young people. So that's been exposed. I don't think it changed. I think it was when 2010. It was probably as bad as it is more worse than it is today. But it was exposed in 2018, and we can see that it's all the way up to the Vatican, not just here in the American Church. But so that's the church governance. I think attendance at Mass has continued to decline. I don't know, it is 22% or something like that. And I know it's a mortal sin not to attend Mass, but a lot of people I know, they on a regular basis don't attend Mass on Sundays, and they don't really have a good excuse. And they don't seem to know the gravity of what they're doing. So we have to change this somehow.
Yeah, I think a lot of, well, it's a combination, I think, and I love your thoughts on this, Tim. I mean, part of it is laziness, just the human habit of laziness. Part of it too is 10 or 15 or 20 years of constant bad headlines, some of them earned on the part of the church, and
Fair enough.
Get fed up. They just say, what's the point, or it's not all that serious.
And I think that's the devil. He uses it. He challenges us. He tempts us. What I worry about, Fran, is what happens after we've had the churches shut down for, call it 6 to 8 weeks, and the bishops have given the right to not have to attend Mass. What do the lay faithful do? People say, well, they're going to rush back to the church because they've been denied the sacraments and are now going to appreciate it going forward. I don't think so. I think
I agree with you. We've been following. I don't know how you watch or attend Mass in California. Sue and I and Dan every Sunday watch our 10:30 Mass from our parish. We got a great pastor, and if you check it on Facebook, it tells you how many people are following, and it's about 350, and that's one Mass a week, 350 people. Now those are households, obviously. It's probably more than 350, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people will have a hard time just getting back into the habit, and that's very dangerous, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's what our selling point for the summer conference is. Let's renew ourselves. We're going to reconsecrate Napa Institute to Our Lady Guadalupe, which we did 10 years ago, and let's reconsecrate ourselves to Our Lady, and then let's go out and bring our kids back and our friends and neighbors, because this is a very serious fork in the road, and we just cannot turn away from God. I was listening to Sarah's book at the beginning of the night, and it says in there that hell is where God isn't. Mm-hmm. And so when we push God out of our lives, we effectively put ourselves into hell.
Yeah,
we have no future.
Yeah,
and no hope. And so I think there's a real teaching moment here as we open up the economy in the next 30 days and we open the churches, that we remind people this should be not post 9/11. We need to go back and get on our knees and thank God that we're alive, and that we even have an unemployment check or whatever we have.
Yeah.
Because this whole world came very close to crumbling and tumbling down, the likes of which we've never seen since the Great Depression.
Yeah, it is pretty extraordinary. Tim, you and Steph have spoken very frequently about how lay people provide really a lion's share of the energy in the church, and you've had a strong interest in lay organizations. Where do you see Napa fitting into the ecology of lay activism in the United States? I mean, what is its particular charism?
Yeah, that's a new responsibility I think we took on in the last 5 years. Since so many nonprofit lay apostolates, Catholic lay apostolates, come to Napa every year, call them 75 of them. Mm-hmm. Why do they come? To get money. They talk to these rich benefactors, philanthropists. And I was, chastised by a lot of people in a very charitable way. What are you thinking? Why are you letting all these lay apostolates come to Napa? And then it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I go, well, that's part of the ministry.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You never get to a wealthy person's heart unless you get his money. And if they're not invested in their church or in a lay apostolate or pro-life center, you don't have them. They're not converted. And so I've tried to support a lot of organizations, and you just have to learn how to say no, or I can't help you now, maybe later. And the people that are talking to you, being friends with you, have to be professional. And there's some training and social distancing there. But we all of a sudden, we became the clearinghouse. Every year, people that do support lay apostolate said, look, I can't meet you this week, but why don't we all catch up when we're in Napa Institute? And so you've got benefactors like a Frank Hanna. He might have 15 meetings with lay apostolates that he's already supporting, but he doesn't have a chance to meet them in person, and it's a great thing. And by the way, this is not unique to the world. I mean, every trade association, whether you're in the hotel business or the retail leasing business, they all have one or two conferences a year where you get together, and every transaction that goes down in that year happens at that conference. That's what I want Napa Institute to be for the Catholic Church, and that's what I think it's becoming. So
one of the things that you did in the last few years, though, that I found very interesting, Tim, was training people how to approach donors. I mean, it's a little bit of a love affair. People want to be treated respectfully on both sides of the dialogue, and getting mugged by people who need money and believe that their apostolate is the most important thing in the world can be an abrupt and unpleasant experience. I think Napa has done a pretty good job of beginning to train people how to develop relationships that then provide support for apostolates. That's something really quite extraordinary, I think.
Well, I'm told anecdotally that, hey, if you're starting an organization, before you file the Articles of Incorporation, buy a ticket to Napa Institute and get the money for your organization. So what happens is you're on a mission and you don't do the right things. It's like dating, right? You got to make friends. You can't you can't get married on the first time you meet somebody. And so, apostolates need to understand it's friends making, and then people get to understand your mission. And the real solution is they call you and say, hey, I like what you're doing there. Can I help you? Now, that doesn't always happen, but you got to just take it easy. And if you're desperate, all the things you're going to say, you're burning bridges.
Yeah.
There's people that I won't deal with anymore because they handle it so unprofessionally. And their greatest line is, you're going to go to hell if you don't give me the money. It's like, I've had that said to me, by the way.
That's a great way to open a relationship.
Yeah, you're going to go to hell if you don't give me the money. So it's Catholic.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's Catholic guilt at its best. So.
Yeah. What do you see as in your experience, all these years that you've been active in philanthropy, what do you see as the main weaknesses and strengths of Catholic lay efforts in the United States? In previous conversation, we talked about how they are both internal and external. Internal being organizational issues, external being the increasingly difficult or hostile environment of the country. I mean, what are your thoughts on the main weaknesses and strengths?
Yeah, well, we started our sister lay apostolate, Napa Legal Institute, which is really thriving in this COVID-19 environment. But they were formed to get good governance to these lay apostolates, whether it's bylaws, articles, meetings, fundraising, building successorships. We have a great law defending these ADF and Beckett that protect religious liberty and lay apostolates, but no one's out there really serving in the corporate governance. So that's what they're doing. That's one concern. Obviously, development's another one. They have to have a mission that's in need, and then they have to be qualified at that mission. So like businesses, not every lay apostolate's going to succeed, and that's okay. It's a trial and error thing, and it's a Holy Spirit deal, and it's a market-driven deal. Your sales are your donations most times. There's some organizations like Napa that has fee-based income as well, but most organizations rely on donations. I think that the other thing that I find bewildering is a lack of gratitude. When you do support people, I find that the women are very good at continuing to thank you and be appreciative of you. The women being the religious orders or women who run the apostolates. And I find that us guys, you give me the money because it's mine and not yours. And when I'll do with it what I want to do with it, and I don't need any of your input. Well, okay. Yeah, it is unbelievable. And by the way, the church is as guilty as anybody, but
no, it doesn't work very well, does it?
Yeah, it's just it's kind of a sin, isn't it? To lack gratitude. I mean, I think gratitude is the most joyful virtue we have. I tell my people during COVID-19, we've lost so much, but look at what we have. Mm-hmm. Just be thankful for what we have and forget about what we lost. I never dreamed in a million years I would have the resources that I ended up with. And so now I'm back to where I thought I was going to be. So, I'm still grateful.
I think this COVID quarantine that we're in, I know this has been the experience in our family, that we're just very grateful to be alive. We're very grateful to be in a position where we have food on the table, and the time spent together has really been very important for us. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said something that I had on my wall for years, which is that gratitude is the beginning of joy. Gratitude lets you be happy, and the more grateful you are, the more joy that you experience. And so your insight about that, I think, is really a true statement, and it connects actually with what you said earlier about beauty. They go together. Joy and beauty and gratitude kind of fit comfortably. Gratitude is one of the things that makes people human beings. It's just a gifting of sentiment to other people for what they've done for you.
One thing, another virtue, providence. So every year I set a theme for the year, and this year's theme, this is for the entire company, was a reliance on providence. Now, 99% of my people don't even know what providence means, right? So you had to go into what providence means. Mm-hmm. Little did I know that we were going to be in a real unbelievable turmoil that we're in, the likes of which I've never seen in my life. And but I seem to still be okay. My wife says I'm looking a little stressed out, but I don't feel stressed out. And I just think we have to rely on God's providence. You're not going to do anything about it anyway, but I mean, rely on God's providence, and it's going to put us at peace. So if we have that gratitude, we get joy. If we rely on God's providence, He knows best, and He didn't cause this, but He'll make good come out of it. So every day I've been writing down what good has come out of this. You just talked a little bit about in your own family, but there's so many things. If you just think about it at the end of the day, when you do your examination of conscience, hey, let's think about what happened today, that if it wasn't for COVID-19, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. If I could just turn the conversation slightly based on that, you and Steph have made a big effort throughout your life to integrate your faith with your idea of principled entrepreneurship. I mean, you try to live your business life based on the principles of your faith. That's obvious in Napa Institute, but in a lot of other things in your giving patterns over many years. What drew you into creating the conference Principled Entrepreneurship? What's the logic behind that, and what are you trying to accomplish with that as a part of the Napa charism?
Well, first of all, to get a group of people together to start talking about this issue of principled entrepreneurship is important. This is beyond business ethics, and I think integrating faith into your business. I've been doing it for a long time. I've been inspired by other people that started in their businesses. I'm told I'm going to get sued. Well, I've been waiting for the lawsuit to come. I haven't even got a nasty letter yet from any one of my team members. The only thing I get on a regular routine basis is I get, thank you. I'm so happy to work for this company. And during COVID-19, I've received an enormous amount of those in the form of emails, verbal exchanges, and letters. They say, I sent flowers to a lot of the women in the company. Everybody said, oh, we got to cut expenses. And I said, no, on Easter Sunday, we're going to send flowers Holy Week. So I signed it with a very Christian message. Easter is the most important day of the liturgical year, and Jesus Christ is risen today, and we have eternal life as a result. And one gal was we came from a third world country, living here legally and all that. She wrote me back and said, hey, my mother got the flowers because I'm staying with my mother. And she's a devout Catholic. And when she read the message that she got from you, she was flabbergasted. She says, what kind of company sends out a message like this? So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm trying to inspire people to, to do it themselves, because it's so well received and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, we don't call our parties holiday parties. We have Christmas parties.
Good for you.
And if somebody's offended, and nobody's offended. I mean, I have Muslim employees, I have Jewish employees. Nobody comes up and said, how dare you call this a Christmas party? I mean, they get it. They're happy to be there,
Yeah. I have one final question, and then anything that you want to add, Tim. What do you think needs to change in the church in the United States for a real renewal to happen? And by change, I mean anything you can think of in terms of structures, procedures, but mainly in the hearts of her clergy and people. What are the things that you'd like to see change?
Well, this seems trite, but it's so true. I want structural change because that's I'm a business guy, and what I see is appalling. But I think the first and foremost thing we have to do is a call to holiness. And this has been talked to me by many, many people in the leadership. We can never get to a restructure unless and until we are all called back to holiness. But we still need, as laity, this business about we're going to take their word for it, this clericalism that I think Archbishop Chaput turned the tables on me and said, look, we didn't cause clericalism. You guys caused clericalism. And you and I have talked about this, how we've given more authority and respect to our ordained priest beyond things that they don't necessarily have any expertise. And so by doing that, we've effectuated clericalism. Okay, I've taken that as a charitable correction. And so from here on in, when I see something I don't like, when I see something that doesn't seem right, I speak up and I encourage others to do the same. And if it gets me in trouble, which it has in the will, then so be it. But they know if I'm in the room, they're going to hear about inappropriate behavior, no matter who's there. And so that's what I think needs to happen. That's the beauty of lay apostolates. We don't have the bureaucratic cover to get away with inappropriate things. And I've told my lay apostolates, don't try to be exempt under the Catholic ruling. File a 990. Be transparent to what you're doing. I know you can go and not file a 990, and that's like, no, we need to be transparent. The sunlight is the prescription for anti-corruption. Sunlight is a prescription for anti-corruption.
Tim, do you have anything that you'd like to leave the audience with? Any ideas or principles?
I would like you to tell us about what you're going to be doing at Notre Dame. We're so excited. I've been talking to you for years. Fran, what are you going to do when you retire? What can we do together at Napa? And you go, nah, I'm not ready yet. I got my commitments to Archbishop, and those have now ended. You're now doing some things with Napa. I remember I think we were at a principal entrepreneurship conference or something, and you were there, and we were meeting in the room, and we were talking about this a few years ago. And now we have this opportunity where you're going to be a fellow at the University of Notre Dame with constitutional studies and Phil Munoz. Do you want to tell us what you're going to do there?
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about focusing at least part of that fellowship on what makes lay apostolates work. I mean, which ones are effective, which ones, without maybe naming them, aren't effective, but the things that go into making an effective lay apostolate or lay apostolic action, that's a significant thing of interest for me, and I think also for you. So that'll be exciting, and it's certainly, I do really strongly believe, Tim, with you, that I mean, most of the energy, and I think it's always been this way, by the way, at least over the last couple of centuries, the energy in the church is among lay people. They're the ones that logically do carry the faith into the world, and so making people more aware of their responsibilities, and not just aware of their responsibilities, but how to go about them in an effective way. That's part of the fellowship. And it's terrific that you're making that possible. And Notre Dame, of course, is a great platform for doing that. So I'm very excited about that. And Sue Ann is very excited about that, because she graduated from St. Mary's right across the road. So
oh wow, wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
So
it'd be great for, hopefully they'll have football season this year. Maybe in Indiana they will, but it's going to be a joy to work with you. We call you at Napa the Kingmaker, because there's been so many people that from George Weigel on down.
oh, I just got lucky. No, I really, what I resonate with, Tim, very strongly is your idea that you put yourself at God's disposal, and if you're not too completely addicted to yourself, some really interesting things can happen. I've had an incredible career without trying. I mean, I've worked with people that, of course, Archbishop Chaput is a perfect example, but I've had the blessing to work with or for or have worked with me a whole generation of Catholic lay leaders, and that's just a tremendous experience. It's a blessing in my life. That's one of the things over the last few weeks when we've been quarantined here, where I've been looking in the mirror and wondering how that happened. That's a great thing.
Well, you were holy. That's how it happened, and you followed providence. And
I'm glad there's a recording of this, because I'm going to play it back for Sue Ann.
yeah, you can take it with you in your laptop to the pearly gates. But it's what we have to do at 65 years old. Most people are retiring. That was the magic age. You're not too far off of that. And we have to tell ourselves, my mission is I'm working until I get sick or I die. And I've seen so many people that said, oh, I'm going to take it easy and all that. Look, I've been taking it easy for the last 15 years as far as travel and that kind of thing. And I'm going to still do the same thing as long as I'm healthy. If I get, sick, then I'm going to have to take a step back. But thanks be to God, I've never missed a day of work in my life, and I've been blessed with health. Doesn't mean it will be healthy for the rest of my life, but I see guys like Charles Koch, who's not necessarily a religious guy, but he's a God-loving and fearing person. I tell him he's more Catholic than most of my Catholic friends. He's 84 years old, and the guy's just warming up. And, he's got to be taking billion-dollar hits right now. I mean, he's one of the largest processors of jet fuel, and it's down 80%. These are major. These are adult hits. So I encourage you not to worry about the retirement. Take your time, go places that you need to go to, but stay engaged, because if you don't, dementia sets in, illnesses start showing up, and we lose purpose, and then the worst thing, depression. And so stay active, and I hope Archbishop Chaput does the same thing. Take a sabbatical, perfect, get relaxed, find out it's boring, and then get back to work.
Yeah. Tim, this has been wonderful. You've given me a lot of time, and our audience a lot of time, and I'm really grateful. So I'm looking forward to the success of Napa in the future, and being of service to that.
We're privileged to have you with us, more than you ever know.
Thanks a lot, Tim. God bless you.